So building a conducive environment for growth in business activity, high up on the agenda and high among calls for the governing party to adopt as economic policy. So it comes as the business community expresses its expectations from the ANC 6th National Policy Conference. Of course, it's day 2 unfolding at Newzroom there today. So let's bring in Thina Nododa, who is the Managing Director at Waymaker Trade Solutions. Thina, it's great to have you with us in studio.
It's great to be here, Michelle.
And a lot of important issues insofar as what the business community, and that's a broad statement, isn't it? But what the business community is expecting or what they're keeping their eyes on insofar as the policy conference is concerned.
Sure.
What are you looking at?
Michelle, I'm looking at international trade. I'm looking at what is the ANC saying about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, assisting SMMEs to get into that space so that South Africa can be a key role player in the success of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And when we look at some of the statistics that I will share with you today, you'll start to understand why South Africa is such a key player to the success of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and why SMMEs are key to the success of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area across the continent.
So President Cyril Ramaphosa, you were telling me off air, spoke about agreements with Ivory Coast recently, didn't he?
Yes, he spoke about a visit to Cote d'Ivoire.
Right.
And he mentioned that they had a business forum that went out there, and South Africa's exports from that business forum that went out increased by 24%, and then exports from Cote d'Ivoire increased by 200%. And he also placed quite a emphasis around the cocoa industry and cashew nuts, because Cote d'Ivoire is a big producer of cocoa. And he was looking at about, how can we create interconnected regional supply chains so that we can work with Cote d'Ivoire in South Africa and use our manufacturing facilities in order to boost the production of cocoa and actually look at it from a perspective when we present ourselves to the international market where the cocoa is the raw materials are being sourced from Cote d'Ivoire. The value addition is possibly happening in South Africa, but it's one product that's being sold out, whether it's to Asian markets, European markets, US markets. He went as far as to even say, he wants to see us challenging the Swiss when it comes to chocolate manufacturing. And exactly, if Africa has so many resources, if we combine these resources and create interconnected regional supply chains, then we can certainly do so. Yeah.
We talk a lot about the Africa Free Trade Agreement, right? Yeah. For our viewers who don't know the specifics about it, in essence, what are we trying to do with this agreement insofar as breaking down the barriers between countries on the continent is concerned?
Okay. We are trying to create the ease of movement of goods, the ease of trade. Right. So that's created by breaking down duties. So every product has a duty. For example, T-shirts have a duty. If you bring T-shirts from outside of Africa, so let's say from China market, for example, you're looking at 40%, 45% duties to bring it into the market. So with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, they're trying to create a free trade zone, a free trade continent. So within that space, what it effectively means is that people are able to trade without having to pay duties. They're trying to create a duty-free continent, which will therefore make it more attractive to source from another African country that can supply you the right product with the right quality at the right time and the right place. All becomes important. So that's what the Africa Continental Free Trade Area wants to do. It wants to drive African states to look at themselves and say, what are we sourcing from where? Yeah. And is there somewhere else we can source it in Africa? Because if we do it from Africa, we're going to get favorable trade duties to bring it into our country.
So we're not getting rid of the duties. It's favorable duties so that we can keep this level of trade on the continent.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible to completely slash duties across all products. But I think they've reached about 90% now of duties now almost being made duty-free. So it's a lot. And you must remember, it's a connection of interconnected regional economic communities. Yeah. So you've got SADC, you've got the Common Market for East and Southern Africa, COMESA. Those have now, Africa Continental Free Trade Area has almost brought them together. But we had these favorable terms already with Botswana, Lesotho, our neighboring countries. Tanzania also falls under SADC as well. But now the Africa Continental Trade Area is trying to say, guys, East, North, West, Southern Africa, let's come together, and not just from the trade side, but also let's work together to boost each other's economies or certain industries so that we are able to so that we're able to put out a stronger exports to the global, not just to other African countries, but to US markets, Asian markets, Australia, New Zealand as well. Why? There's no reason why we cannot be sourcing raw materials from Nigeria, doing some value addition in South Africa, selling to New Zealand. That happens. And the quicker we get there, the impact it will have for our GDP, job creation.
As a continent?
As a continent,
but
yes.
also as individual countries?
Individual countries, those who maximize it on it most will do so, yes. And this can come in different ways. That can come in the form of the actual trade of goods. If we get our SMMEs, say we were to boost 20% of our exports, or increase 20%, and through our SMMEs, you can imagine how many jobs would have been created in South Africa alone for that. But within the partnering with other countries, for example, I've got a partner who's currently, he left yesterday for Nigeria on a private charter. He left with 241 cattle. Of those 241, 200 were Jersey heifers, and then 23 were Jersey bulls, and then 300 goats as well. Now, it's not about the export of those cattle or those goats. It's about inbreeding and creating a strong agricultural dairy industry within Nigeria. But if they want to do that, they need to have cattle that are good at producing dairy products. Jersey cattle do that amazingly, and that's why they're doing that. So it's not simply from a perspective of I want them to buy my goods. Right. It can also be how can we help each other?
How can we partner?
To develop? Yeah,
how
definitely.
can we partner essentially? You've talked about the issue of SMMEs and how this agreement, this Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, could benefit SMMEs, but perhaps how SMMEs are not quite ready to get there. Yeah. Are we educated enough insofar as trade with other countries, including on the continent, is concerned?
Michelle, I think the Department of Trade and Industry makes quite an effort through their the Gauteng Growth Development Agency, Eastern Cape Development Corporation, and Western Cape, they've got Westgrow. So they do run export readiness, export trainings for SMMEs. My concern is after those trainings, what happens with those SMMEs. So it's one thing to tell a person what the process is, but it's quite a lot of information to take in 1 week. So it's important to sort of keep walking the road with them. And we talk about export readiness. There's certain things, criteria you need to meet in order for you to be able to export your product out of South Africa. So you need to be registered with customs, SARS, and you get your customs code. Once you have a customs code, then you are registered to trade. Right. And you need to also know your tariff code, your product tariff code, because this allows you to identify what duties am I being charged when I get into another country. So that I can adjust my pricing accordingly. So that you know how to say, what is my price? What is the price of my product in Nigeria? Right. What is the price of my product in England? Or what's my price of my product in Mexico? You need to know what is Mexico going to charge you for bringing that in. You're going to be charged VAT, okay? So that's going to happen. You're going to be charged duties, but different countries will have different duties. And different products. Against different products. Yeah. So, Mexico might say for textiles, clothing, let's just stick to the T-shirt example. They'll say 45%, or they might say 40%. Yeah. But you might find, another country, Argentina might say 10%. But this is all dependent on how strong those industries are within their own borders. So yes, definitely there's understanding the tariffs so that you can work out your total landed costing. If your shirt is 100 Rand in South Africa, how much is it when it now gets to Nigeria? Yeah. That's your logistics costs, all your other testings that you may have need to have done in South Africa before the product leaves, and then it's also now your VAT and duties. Once you know that, then you know what you can say to a person, how much is my product. So I've extracted, and my team has extracted some excerpts from the policy document of the ANC insofar as international cooperation is concerned. And the party itself talks about big ideals that they have and that they have had for some time insofar as cooperation with other countries on the continent and around the world is concerned, particularly insofar as trade is concerned. Sure. But it does admit that there are inadequate systems in place insofar as monitoring is concerned. Okay. What are you hoping will emerge from policy conference and over the next 5 years, because that's what the policy conference is about, right? It's about the plans the government has for the country in the next 5 years in terms of the big challenges
What are you hoping will emerge?
Okay, I think there's actually been a lot of work that the government is doing behind closed doors regarding international trade and how they can support South Africans to become exporters. The implementation of it and how it's been going, I wouldn't know. I think they would know better. But through the Department of Trade and Industry, they've got what they call the EMIA scheme, which is the Export Market and Investment and Assistance Scheme, which is a grant which I think is amazing for South African businesses. And the goal of it is to provide SMMEs with financial capacity to conduct outward missions. So when I discuss outward missions and inward missions, it's if I'm sitting in South Africa and I'm producing a product that I've discovered has an interest in Kenya, for example, okay? Now, for me to go spend, and I talk to a distributor, a wholesaler, and possibly a chain of some stores, and they say, okay, we actually really want to see you, want to see your samples. Maybe I send a sample before, they're happy with it, but there's still talks happening. You can actually go through the Department of Trade and Industry and get assistance for you to get, your flights and your flights back.
Do small businesses know about such initiatives? Or do enough small businesses know about it?
Look, a lot have been, because this has been going for a while. So there's what they used to call, or they still have, the National Pavilion List. Now, the difference with the National Pavilion List and the outward mission is that Pavilion is trade shows all over the world. There's always trade shows at any given moment all over the world.
Right. Especially now that COVID is sort of learning to live with COVID-19.
Yeah, 100%. So the Department of Trade and Industry will announce the trade shows that they will be a part of for the year. So they're easily about 30 trade shows. Now, if you find a trade show that you can identify with and you would like to attend because you believe that you've got a strength in that market, then you can apply and go there and get financial assistance from flights, accommodation. Sometimes it even goes to a daily stipend, if you want to call it that. So that exists, and these are exciting things. But I think when you want to talk about implementation, they are also assessing which is the best way. And I've worked with them, and I've been benefited from working with the Department of Trade and Industry in terms of inward and outward missions.
Good.
So we are working to bring in missions from Kenya, Nigeria, and then they wanted 2 SADC countries, so Zimbabwe and Lesotho, that we want to bring to South Africa to engage in trade shows. And we're working in trade shows in September. There's Nampo Cape, Nampo Alpha, and then next year we're also looking at Bloom Show and possibly Nampo as well. And how can we bring in inward missions from outside countries that come and attend these shows and look, and we try and identify business opportunities so that when they go back, we can start developing together with them.
And start those discussions.
Yes, 100%. And these are the things that, create growth. I mean, if you look at the dairy industry, South Africa's dairy industry is quite well renowned. If other countries are wanting to add value-added products where they've got cattle, etc., but now maybe they want to start making cheese or they want to start making anything value-added, South Africa has that manufacturing capacity to create that. So it's not just about those products. It's about innovation. It's about technology and manufacturing capacity in order to ensure that we can actually benefit and strengthen those industries. So within the dairy space, that's just one example. I think, sorry, I think when I was telling you about with the Nigeria one, there's also another example where it's a trade that just happened, but it's not a simple matter of somebody just wanted a couple of cows and he's going to keep them on his farm. They actually want to develop. There's a far bigger goal at the end that people are looking at.
And obviously the goal at the end for all of these initiatives is to create those relationships, ultimately get the economy going, boost job creation. Yeah, it's such an important discussion.
No, 100%. I think COVID-19 has had that impact. We, South Africa, our economy wasn't doing the greatest even prior to COVID. So we can see now, the number of unemployment that we have in youth. And this is not just a South Africa problem. This is an Africa problem.
Absolutely.
So I've seen a lot of people talking about public and private sector partnerships in order to get out of these things. You've heard it across, Transnet and working on the railroads together. Eskom is now looking at private contribution towards our electricity solutions. But, even again with international trade, it requires, private sector has a big place to play and public is supporting us. Hence, we keep mentioning the DTI. But this one is key because those partnerships, if done well, can actually result in the success. But if one goes without the other, sometimes let's just say, especially from a business side, it can be quite capital intensive.
Thina Nododa, incredibly important discussion, and of course one that we are watching insofar as policy conference is concerned as well. The Managing Director at Waymaker Trade Solutions. Thanks for coming into studio.